Hey guys, welcome to a list of 10 books that I loved this autumn. I did really bad at sharing favorites throughout the year. I shared my monthly wrap-ups and shared the books that I liked and disliked there. But I want to get better at and back into sharing kind of like quarterly favorites videos, but I want to do them at the end of each season because I tend to read seasonally. Not completely, but fairly seasonally. Then they're kind of also like recommendation videos, like a bonus recommendation video for that season, although the season will already be over for the most part. But I think a lot of my viewers are kind of just getting into autumn now, and in my mind we are like full on into winter, so whatever. These are my 10 favorite books that I read since I guess it's been September, October, and the first half of November. To me, that is what autumn is. And I think we're going in the reverse order that I read them in, just because that's how I listed them. So the first one I haven't even talked about yet. I haven't even filmed my wrap-up for, but that is The Unraveling of Emily Dulain. This book is publishing February 4th, and this was just a blast. I took time to annotate it. Oh, also it's a signed ARC. But I took my time and I annotated this book. I have a short reel on Instagram, and also I put a short here on YouTube sharing the first few pages of my annotations. So much fun, up to the level. This is a portal fantasy. We've got a girl named Emily Dulain. She's 17. When she was 10, she saw her sister disappear, and her mom thinks she's a little crazy because what she said she saw is her sister kind of like ribboning away, like unraveling. And right near the beginning of this book, the same thing happens to Emily, and she ends up in this fantasy world. What I really enjoyed is her sense of humor, her spunk. The character that she is was so much fun. Her wit, how she talked to herself, it cracked me up so much. And she loves to write, and she often talks about life in tropes, which as a reader is just a lot of fun. So definitely recommend this one as soon as you can get your hands on it. A reread for me was Monster by Frank Peretti. I enjoyed this book just as much the second time through. Even though I knew a lot of kind of what was coming, it was still fun. Frank Peretti does a really good job of writing eerie stories. So we follow a couple that are going camping, and when they get to the cabin they're supposed to be going to, it's like demolished. They can't find the guy around anywhere, and so they camp outside that night and hear some crazy noises, and the wife gets taken away, and the husband is trying to find her throughout the book. Very enjoyable. Not my absolute favorite Frank Peretti, but I really do enjoy it. Then we have The Burning Tree. This is by Helen Dent. I listened to this one on audio. It reminded me a little bit of Romeo and Juliet in the way, not very much, but in the way that the town has these two families that are like always fighting against each other. That's where the similarities beginning and end. So our main character, her sister, something happens to her and she kind of goes into this coma, and this town has this tree in the middle of this forest called the Burning Tree that they feel is responsible for a lot of strange things over the years. And so her family kind of goes to not like bring a sacrifice to the tree, it's kind of hard to explain, but they try to see if the tree will undo this thing that has happened to our main character's sister. And when that doesn't work, she decides to set the tree on fire, and things kind of go terribly wrong from there. This was a fun ride. I read it last month, I think. Definitely recommend that. Then we have The Forgotten Book. Okay, this one was all the Harry Potter, but like maybe slightly older vibes that I was going for. We've got like the school in a castle in Germany kind of feel. It felt very like autumnal. So our main character is in high school at this prestigious school. She's only there because her father is the headmaster. And at the beginning of the school year, this guy who's a few years older than her comes. His family owns the castle, and therefore he can kind of do whatever he wants. But he's there because his sister, his twin sister, went missing from the school years before, and he's trying to figure out what happened to her. And then meanwhile, our main character finds this book that she realizes kind of whatever she writes in there ends up happening. Sometimes not exactly like she meant it to happen, or not exactly when or what, but things happen. And she also tries to get on board with finding this guy's sister. Nice creepy vibes. Last month was such a great month for books for me. I also read Remember Me. This one gave me Jamie Jo Wright vibes. We've got dual timeline. In the past timeline, our main character is 16 or 17. She's coming to this hotel for the summer to spend time with her fiance before they get married. Her family is rich, but her dad has just lost most of his money, but they're keeping that on the down low so she can marry this rich guy that will help the family out, even though he's kind of sleazy and not the greatest guy. And then in the modern timeline, we're following a girl who has come to this hotel to live, I guess, because her father is going to work there. So they're taking up residence in the hotel, and she starts to find a little bit out about the hotel's past and stumbles across this story of this girl from years before, because what happens actually is she ends up getting murdered. And so our main modern timeline person's trying to figure out what happened. Nice gothic eerie vibes, so definitely recommend. Oh, and then in Jamie Jo Wright, Spectres in the Glass House. Oh, I really, really liked this one. So Jamie Jo Wright, dual timeline. We've got like 1900s, like early 1900s and kind of present day. And so back in the early 1900s, our main character is going to live at this house which her mother kind of had built over the years when she was younger, and her mother would often like change her mind partway through the build. So there's hallways that lead to nowhere, and like doors that have a staircase that lead to nowhere, and strange things like that. So she's gone to live there, and bodies keep turning up with dried butterflies on them. Super creepy. And then in our present day timeline, we have a young woman who is working with a man that is living in this house, bought this house, and he wants to write a biography, I think, of, well, kind of like the story of those murders that happened. It was called The Butterfly Butcher. So he wants to tell that story. And so she's his research assistant, and all sorts of weird, creepy things start happening, like right from the beginning. And I always find it interesting to see how Jamie Jo Wright is gonna like merge those two timelines together, because I don't know, my brain's not smart enough to make all the connections, and I always enjoy seeing how she's unfolding the story. Also has the creepy gothic vibes as well. Another fantasy is Deathmark by Kate Stradling. This is the story of a girl who's an indentured servant. She ends up getting what is called the death mark, which is a visible mark that slowly spreads through the body, gives like purpley silvery veins throughout the body slowly until the person dies. Her mother died from it years before, and she's now got this death mark. She knows she's got like maximum 6 months to live, probably less than that. And so she decides to run away from being an indentured servant, because that's not how she wants to spend her last days, nor does she want to go to the sanatorium, because she saw her mother just wither away there, and she doesn't want that to be her story. And so she decides to run away from the place where she's a servant, and she gets caught on the road. She's really worried that this guy who sometimes came to the tavern where she was a servant is going to turn her in. But he has this odd alternative where he says that he'll marry her and give her her 2 wishes before she dies, which are to learn to write and see the sea. I think those were her 2 wishes. So she's like, well, that's strange, but I'm not going to live very long anyway, so I'll take him up on that. And yeah, unexpected twists and turns. Kate Stradling has always been a really fun ride. I've enjoyed all of her books, so highly recommend that. I don't know if I need to say that at the end of each one. I mean, I definitely don't, because they're on the list, but I feel the need to just really get you guys to read these books. What do we got next? Oh yeah, Lethal Kings. So this is the second in the duology. The first one was Mortal Queens, then we've got Lethal Kings. I have raved about, well, at least Mortal Queens since it came out in February. I got an arc, flew through my arc of Lethal Kings. This is a story where our main character is a mortal, like a mortal, not immortal. She is a mortal girl, and the Fae come once a year to choose a queen for their kingdom. And at the start of the book, she's chosen. She goes to the Fae kingdom, realizes that it is a lot different than she realized. She is all of a sudden having to play all these political games. There's a lot of backstabbing and secrets and things that are suspicious, and some surprising negative things. And so I can't really tell you where Lethal Kings starts or goes, but that duology is definitely worth your time. In the very creepy mystery suspense, Her Darkest Secret by Jessica R. Patch. Wow, this is one I did not let myself read right before bed. It was pretty dark, but in a good way. Like, there are some very good biblical or Christian themes and conversations, and light does win out. But we follow this woman who is an FBI agent for the Strange Crimes Unit, and years before, when she was a teenager, she actually got abducted by this guy who's been known as the nursery rhyme killer, and he has struck again. So she is coming to try to hunt him down. It is spooky, but if you can handle it, which I know not everyone can, if you can handle it, it's really, really good. And I keep talking about it and need to continue the series. And the last one, would this be a video by Chantel if I did not talk about Mrs. Polifax? I read Mrs. Polifax on the China Station, I think in September maybe. Just loving Mrs. Polifax. Always ready to try to push her on more people. Please do not let these tacky covers scare you away. The newer editions, I don't think all the books are in those editions yet. They look much more modern, a little bit maybe less lame. But Mrs. Polifax, she is in her 60s, and she decides to join the CIA kind of accidentally. I mean, she was intentional. They hired her accidentally. And I just love how smart and spunky she is. She grows through the series. Definitely read it in order. Her karate skills get better. Just love her. So sad when I'm going to be done this series. Definitely going to be ones that I reread and ones that I collect. They're very hard to find, but you can find them sometimes. So those are the 10 books that I loved the most from the beginning of September to, I'm filming a little bit ahead. We're not even quite at the middle of November yet, but definitely recommend those. Most of them, let's see my list here again. Most of these are like very autumnal feeling. Wow, yeah. I read very seasonally when it's autumn and winter. If you guys need recommendations, if you're still feeling like you want to read some more autumnal, creepy, where light wins out kind of books, recommend those. Or save this for next year if you want some ideas for next year. I would love to hear if you guys had some favorite books from autumn or favorite books that have those autumnal vibes. I'm always interested in that kind of books, so leave them in the comments, and thanks for hanging out with me again.